Hey, you can fool me for a week. You could probably fool me for 2.5 weeks. When we get to week 4 now, that is when the fakes get exposed. We're going to call our shot here on this glorious Prediction Tuesday. It is Tuesday, September 17th, 2024, the last one on the face of the planet. Welcome into the Hard Count. This is the People's College Football Show. College football, nothing but college football every single day of the year. Y'all, we got a big week 4 slate now. A buffet, if you will. We got Nebraska, Illinois, a ranked matchup now on Friday night. That's going to be electrifying. You got Illinois going to Lincoln. Dylan Raiola and company trying to stay unbeaten. First time being 3-0 since 2016. What happens there? We're going to call our shot there. We're going to call our shot also for USC going to Michigan. Think about how we viewed this game a couple of months ago. Hey, USC, man, on the defensive side of the football, they are just going to have a hard time adjusting to the Big Ten. That may still be true, but in this game now, in a what could be a new-look Michigan outfit with Alex Orji now there back playing quarterback, could be a little bit more downhill. We're about to find out about USC, about to find out about Michigan in a very, very real way. Probably the game of the week, Josh Heupel making his way back to Norman, Oklahoma. They are, I'm sure, going to be very, I don't know if happy is the right word, but they're going to be very emotional on his return. Tennessee now trying to kick down the door in the college football playoff. Starts with this game at Oklahoma. Oklahoma now, you wanted the smoke. You wanted it. You've been waiting for it. You're here now. You're in the SEC. And you have arguably the top offense in all of college football coming to Norman. Now, Oklahoma, they're pretty salty on defense as well. Danny Stutzman said already, it's a young quarterback. What do you want me to say? We got to get the crowd into it. That's going to be a lot of fun. We'll pick that one. And then a very sneaky, very, very subtle, big-time matchup in the Big 12. Utah and Oklahoma State set to get after it. Two salty organizations. Between those two quarterbacks, you got 14 years of college football with Alan Bowman and Cam Rising. Some folks say, hey, get a job, go on LinkedIn. I say, as long as they give you a helmet, brother, and they're paying for your school, now you got NIL, play as long as you possibly can. So we'll talk about all those games. We'll break them all down, give you our picks, both when it comes to our winner and against the number. Also, we do this every single Tuesday if you're new to this show, but we take accountability on this show, okay? Availability is your best ability. Second ability, though, is probably accountability, all right? So probably third ability would be mobility. Regardless, though, we'll take accountability here in just a minute here and talk about what we were right and what we were wrong about when it comes to what happened during Week 3. For a lot of y'all that are tuned in right now, most of y'all have probably watched this show before as we move into Week 3, or move into Week 4, rather, out of Week 3. But if you're just now finding us for college football season, welcome. Like I said, it's college football, nothing but college football. We love, cherish, and respect the greatest sport on the face of planet Earth. We are on the exact opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to everything that has to do with clickbait and hot takes and all that. We don't really traffic in that, okay? This is college football by college football fans that just happen to get a microphone in front of them and are, fortunate enough now, lucky enough to be able to do this for a full-time profession. So, want y'all a part of this college football sticker community. We appreciate y'all being subscribed. If you're more of a podcast person, I know a lot of y'all are, we have a podcast product. So this show essentially is in podcast form for you, as well as all of our Sunday reaction videos. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get them, wherever you get your podcasts, we got you there. You just type in the Hard Count with J.D. Pickell, and you'll find our show. Spotify Rap season now, right around the corner. So start to dial that in now, and a great way to dial in by listening to this show, the Hard Count. All right, so let's not waste too much more time, man. Let's start with hits and misses. Might as well call it hits and eating crow. Y'all, we said it yesterday during our one-off reaction videos. Colorado, we were off on them. We were wrong. I really thought Colorado would trot out there after losing to Nebraska. A lot of transfers. You got Shador talking about the offensive line, and then Colorado went out there and put a beating on Colorado State. We picked Colorado State. We were wrong. Hey, crow. If you're listening on a podcast, we are eating a bag of crow right now, as we deserve to, having picked that one wrong. And also, I'll say this. There was a lot of takes, too, that I thought were a little bit nonsense out there around Shador Sanders and the way that he handled himself post-game. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, Braden Fowler Nicolosi, quarterback for Colorado State, during the week says essentially he feels like they should have beat them last year, is what him and his teammate Torrey Horton said. And then he also mentioned, we'll see how far Instagram followers get them, essentially implying that Colorado was all bark and no bite. All right, so then after the game, Braden Fowler-Nicolosi goes to shake Shedeur Sanders' hand. Shedeur Sanders is like, no, you were the one talking all that cash, and doesn't shake his hand. All right, so the internet ran with this one, and they tried to tell you Shedeur Sanders is a bad guy. You got one part of the internet telling you Braden Fowler-Nicolosi is a bad guy, and I'm like, why are we being soft about this? Like, this is rivalry college football. I'm cool with you talking smack before the game. I'm cool with you handling yourself a certain way after the game. It's a rivalry college football. Now, if you're in Shedeur Sanders' camp, say, hey, you got every NFL GM watching you. Might not be the worst look in the world to shake my guy's hand. But even with that being said, I don't have an issue with it. Not a big deal, and this is not chess or debate club, so it's rivalry college football, and I think everything that happened there is well within bounds. All right, just so we're on the same page. Now, we were right about Alabama. We said Alabama, the USF game was the USF game. I'm not pounding the alarm because it went to the fourth quarter against South Florida. They went to the fourth quarter last year against South Florida, then won the SEC. So pretty straightforward there. Jalen Milroe is a walking multi-touchdown game kind of guy, both rushing and passing. In every single game now, he has both run for 2 and thrown for more than 2. So, I think he's absolutely a Heisman Trophy kind of guy. The thing that we talked about before the game that we feel like we hit on in terms of what happened in the game, Alabama, I think for the most part leading into this game, kept it pretty vanilla, kept it pretty casual, and then when they got to this game now, I don't think they showed you everything. I don't think they pulled back the curtain and showed you what they really had in the bag, but I do think they went a little bit deeper, came on the board, put some sauce on it, and we saw Alabama score 42. So the Tide, they're just going to keep trending upward. I said it yesterday. It feels like they have some Saban-ish traits, if you will, when it comes to how they're going to trend, which is ultimately playing their best football when it matters the most. We were way off on Florida. Crow on Florida. Florida, I hate to say this because I am always this Crow right here for us if you're listening on podcasts. Bunch of Crow. Florida, we're bad. Are bad on that. Man. I hate to say it feels like Florida's really cooked right now. And I said this, if you watch me on our Instagram reactions we do, like in real time on Saturdays, I'm always the guy that's like, give the head coach more time, give the quarterback more time. Why? Because college football is really freaking hard. Like this is a very difficult sport these people commit their lives to. Even with that being my predisposition, it's time, man. Like it's a matter of when, not if, when it comes to Billy Napier no longer being the head guy at Florida. And that's coming from someone that said before the season, hey, they're going to play for Billy Napier. This roster is better than we think. Graham Mertz is, I think, a lot better than people are giving credit for nationally. And then they go out there and, just get absolutely just run over by Texas A&M in the swamp, mind you, with a quarterback making his first start. I can't defend that. I don't think there's anyone that can defend right now what's happened at Florida so far. So we were way off on Florida. Thought they would kind of draw a line in the sand. Clearly, that did not happen at all. Now, we hit on this, and we might get some pushback here, but that's okay. I think Georgia showed the championship traits that we talked about. You're saying, JD, they really probably in a lot of people's minds should have lost to Kentucky. I hear you. I understand. I'm not too worried about Georgia because to me, I'm like, okay, Georgia did not have their best game. 100% true. Did not have it. And even when that was the case, found a way to get it done. So I think really it's all your perspective on this whole thing. Some people say, hey, Georgia got exposed against Kentucky. I'm saying Kentucky's always played Georgia well. We've seen them have lackluster road SEC openers, much like last year against Auburn. The way they played Missouri a couple years ago where they had to have a comeback, I believe, late in that game to end up finding a way to win in Columbia. And that team ended up winning the national title that struggled with Missouri, for the record. So not worried about Georgia. Again, I think they didn't have their best day. Still found a way to get it done. That's what good football teams find a way to do. When it's not your best day, you find a way to get it done. One more. I don't even know if we need to eat crow on this. I think we've eaten crow about it before. But, Florida State, we picked them to beat Memphis. I'm putting the crow on the ground if you're hearing some crinkling bags here. We picked them to beat Memphis. And, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this. It's like when you go, your arm kind of hurts and you think maybe you have a hairline fracture. So you go to the doctor, they take an x-ray, like, oh yeah, we'll see what the damage is. They come back with the results like, hey, it's a lot worse than we thought. That thing is broken in half. That is Florida State right now. And that's not to take anything away from Memphis. I think Memphis is a good football team. They're going to be very squarely in that G5 conversation when it comes to who could end up making the college football playoff. But, like, y'all, I'm nervous about Florida State. We were talking about them being the favorite to win the ACC, both us and Las Vegas. Las Vegas is a place with skyscrapers in the middle of the desert. All right? Like, they were way off on this one. We were way off on this one. And the loss to Memphis just felt like salt in the wound. I don't even know if they're going to make a bowl game. That is a fair question to ask now around Florida State. So, hits and misses from week 3. Again, this is our prediction show, but every single Tuesday, take accountability. Look you square into the camera lens that you're watching the show on YouTube from, and we speak directly into your eardrums if you're listening on podcast, and that was the way the cookie crumbled from week 3 of the college football season. So we circle the wagons, we rally, and we attack it again in week 4. So to start our undefeated week here heading into week 4, we got Illinois and Nebraska. Illinois going to Nebraska. Nebraska, 8.5-point favorite at the crib. I love so much that this is 8 Eastern on a Friday night. It's going to be a lot of fun. Friday nights now been throwing us some lobs here when it comes to the big-time matchups. Kansas State and Arizona last week, a lot of fun. Nebraska right now is rolling. 3-0. Vibes are immaculate. They should be. I said this many times. We talk about Nebraska. You feel like for the first time you weren't imagining it the whole time. You weren't just telling yourself that Nebraska was close, and then every single year they end up losing like a million close games. They're 3-0 right now for the first time since 2016, which just so happens to also be the last time Nebraska made a bowl game. So it's all working. Like I said, vibes are great. The question, though, within this game for Nebraska is, okay, well, success now for this football team is a new thing. And success is sort of a funny stimulant, right? It can cause you to take your eye off the ball and cause you to believe things about yourself that aren't actually true. And you sort of forget about what actually got you to be successful. How do you handle that? This is the spot now against a Brett Bielema-coached Illinois team. We're going to find out. Because Illinois now, they're also ranked. We got a ranked matchup on Friday night on Fox. I love this so much. Illinois, don't look now. They're also 3-0. It's a Brett Bielema-coached football team. They're going to be physical and punch you in the mouth. They're going to play downhill on defense, play a lot of man coverage. And also, Illinois, you think about like Bielema ball, you think about how often he runs the football. They've actually had a lot of balance, has Illinois, to this point in the season. Right around 51 to 48% pass to run. Luke Altmaier now been pretty efficient. Like Luke Altmaier is a massive reason at the quarterback position why they are 3-0. But going back to what I said about Illinois playing man coverage, that's really the matchup that I cannot wait to watch. I think that on the lines of scrimmage, that'll be a massive part of this. But like for Nebraska, the next evolution of what they want to become is how much they can maximize Dylan Raiola and pushing the ball downfield. That was a big reason why, those transfer portal wide receivers wanted to come to Nebraska was because of Dylan Raiola and because of what they're going to be, I think, going forward here. So as they start to kind of hit that next gear in this game against Illinois, this will be the best secondary Dylan Raiola and this wide receiving room has played against. All right, so Illinois is averaging 2.5 takeaways a game right now. I know we're only 3 games in, so yes, those numbers are a little bit skewed, but even with that being said, the decision-making of Dylan Raiola against Illinois is going to be, under a microscope. Cannot run, cannot hide. It's going to be a massive, massive spot for them because of the Friday night spot, but also because of what Illinois' defense is going to bring to the table. They're just going to say, hey, our guys are better than your guys. So far, like I said, 2.5 takeaways a game. That's been the case for them, being 3-0. They gave Kansas fits. You go back and watch that Kansas game. It was brutal. They were all up in their grill. Kansas honestly had I felt like a better offensive output than Illinois that day, but Illinois just kept finding ways to take the football away and create points for their team that way. So overall now, if Dylan Raiola is able to stay patient, stay consistent in his decision-making, Nebraska's going to have more than a puncher's chance. That's why they're 8.5-point favorites. But with that being said, again, you turn it over, give Luke Altmaier extra bullets. Maybe you have to watch a fair amount of this game because they start having success on the ground because you've left your defense out there for so long. Like, That would be, I think, the situation you want to avoid if you're Nebraska. Now, for Nebraska, I think that the trenches do ultimately favor them. As long as they're not out there for an extended period of time, they should be in relatively good shape. In this game last year, that Nebraska won, one of the 5 games they won, they only allowed 21 yards rushing. Now, again, you don't copy and paste last year's team to this year's team, but even with that being said, I think that's something that you are probably mindful of if you're Illinois. You want to run the football, that's true, but Zachary Franklin, the transfer from UTSA to Ole Miss and now Illinois, I think he's the guy that you keep an eye on if you're watching this game for Illinois, because he, to me, is like a big play wide receiver, great catch radius, had a sweet like one-handed stick-'em kind of grab against Kansas. I think if Illinois is going to win this game, they got to find a way to have some explosives. Maybe it's a pass-to-run situation, kind of loosen up the box a little bit and then run the football. Zachary Franklin's going to be a massive part of trying to get the numbers they want to run the football against. So that's kind of the matchup perspective of this whole thing. But ultimately, at the end of the day, like what we said about Nebraska is really how I feel about this game. It really is a litmus test for how far along are they in doing things the Matt Rule way. Because the Matt Rule way is you just say, okay, what's next? Let's go to the next thing. Let's dominate that, and then we'll go to the next thing. Like you have like just a 1-0 mentality every single day at practice, for the game itself, and then you move on to the next thing. On paper, Nebraska is the more talented team. Outside of Dylan Raiola, they are the more experienced team. But again, if you don't handle success the right way, take your foot off the gas when it comes to preparation. You look at Illinois, you say, oh, we beat them last year, and this is a better team this year. We should roll these guys. I'm just saying now, it's a Friday night. We all know the unofficial science of college football is weird things happen on Friday nights. If it's a Saturday, it's a noon kick, maybe you feel different. Friday night. All right? So, this is also, with it being a Brett Bielema coach team, they will get after you, especially if you give them some room to breathe. I think Nebraska maybe has a slow start in this game because it's Friday night, because of the short week, because of all the things we said about Illinois, because of them handling success. But I do think ultimately Nebraska gathers themselves, gets their footing. In true Big Ten kind of fashion, they win a 24-13 ball game at home to stay unbeaten, move to 4-0. And, obviously be even more highly ranked in the following poll. So we like Nebraska to win, and by that number, we like Nebraska to cover. It's going to be fun, man. Again, Friday night. What else could you want but Friday night football, man? I know that the weekend slate is awesome, but the Friday night games, too, just get us juiced up. I see someone in the chat saying, talk about Clemson, please. We were on the fence about doing a Clemson-NC State prediction. Because of that live chat, we will do a Clemson-NC State prediction during the show this week, so stay tuned. If you're watching live right now, though, make sure you're subscribed. Obviously, we check the live chat. We want to hear from y'all. That is a perfect example. Like, we are the People's College Football Show. We listen to y'all. We want to hear from y'all. The best way for us to hear from y'all, though, to be interacting with y'all, is you being subscribed. That gives us a better gauge for what our audience wants to see. So thank you for that in advance. Little subscribe button under the picture. We appreciate you so much for that. So I will say this, too. If you've been tailing us on Prize Picks, we're hot right now. Okay, against the suits, not so much. We're collecting data still right there, but we are hot right now when it comes to Prize Picks. Prize Picks, of course, bringing you the hard count today. Daily fantasy, easy to play, easy to understand, easy to take out your winnings. Last week, we said, hey, Jalen Milroe, what he does with his legs, that will be a problem for Wisconsin. 44.5 rush yards, take the more, keep it moving. Then you take Caleb Williams. He's got a free square all September. Half a passing yard, you take the more there, you pair it with the Jalen Milroe rush total. Use code HARDCOUNT, $5 in lineups. You get $50 in promo funds just for playing. Also, full transparency, great way to support the show. It shows the powers that be at Prize Picks that y'all are some college football sickos and that you're dialed into what we're doing here. So thank you for that, for redeeming the code, that is. But yeah, we're hot right now. We're 2 weeks in a row now. Our Prize Picks plays that we post on my Instagram, those are rolling, okay? So lock in there, and we will make sure that we all are able to benefit when we are right. But, again, feel free to fade as well. That is your right as an American, and so we appreciate y'all taking advantage of that. But, again, hard count, use that promo code, prizepicks.com, $5 in lineups, $50 in promo funds. So this may be the game of the week for you, depending on who you're supporting across the college football landscape. USC at Michigan. 3:30 Eastern, CBS. The CBS theme. So that SEC on CBS theme used to hear, that is now going to be with this game at the Big Hoss in Ann Arbor. USC, 5.5-point favorites. We'll start with talking about Michigan because they're the home team. They're trying to hit reset a little bit here, and they have only dropped the Texas game against Arkansas State. Didn't look as dominant as you would have hoped they would look. A big reason for that, kept giving the football away. All right, so Davis Warren, unfortunately, it's like, hey, we got to make a switch here. Davis Warren, we love you. Alex Orji, we feel like right now is going to give us a better chance to win football games. So they announced that yesterday. They made that switch during the game. Here's the opportunity for Michigan. There's a ton on the table for USC, and we'll talk about that. But for Michigan now, they're trying to hit reset on their season. If you go beat USC with all the buzz they've generated at this point in the year, you beat LSU, they beat Utah State and shut them out, and Utah State is Utah State, but point remains the same. You beat USC, I think at that point you say, okay, we fixed the quarterback position, we fixed the offense, we're still Michigan. We still won the whole darn thing a year ago. And if you are still trying to calibrate your brain to the college football playoff with 12 teams now, Michigan is very much so still in the hunt. Like, are they the favorite right now to make the college football playoff after the way they looked against Texas? Probably not. But again, you hit reset, you beat USC. They say this a lot on College Game Day, and I think it's hilarious because I think it's true. Now we go. That happened? Okay, now we go. I love that. That could be Michigan if they end up beating USC. Now for USC, this opportunity is massive. It's another reason to be subscribed to this channel because we do little one-off shorter one-off segments that live on this channel, not in the live show. But we talked about USC and the opportunity for them yesterday. This is a chance to totally flip the optics on what we have perceived a Lincoln Riley coach team to be. Because what have we always said about them? Hey, good offense. He's always going to have a quarterback. They're always going to be, able to score points. But defensively, man, they just get ragdolled. They just get absolutely just taken to the woodshed. Just belt to behind when it comes to that defense. Well, hired a whole new staff. Danton Lynn doing his thing on that side of the football. Held LSU to 20 points. If you go to Ann Arbor and beat a team that has been the epitome of what the Big Ten is. They've won the Big Ten in the last 3 years. You go beat them, it's like, okay, hey, USC now. They can hang. Maybe they did fix that defense. Maybe they are a more physical outfit. That's the optics side. Think about the internal side. If you're USC, you go beat the defending national champions at their place. Think about what that would do from a confidence perspective for that defense. Look in the mirror and see themselves as actually a unit that can maybe contend for winning the Big Ten. I'm just saying, there's a lot at stake here, not even to mention the recruiting impact there. You can market yourself as a more physical outfit that way, where you're headed, all those things. Not to get too far down the rabbit hole, but a lot on the table here for both teams, needless to say. Now, if I'm USC, I'm watching the heck out of that Texas game for a number of reasons. Obviously, you had the bye week, which is huge, but the blueprint that Texas, I think, put on the table for Lincoln Riley and company, it would get me fired up. Because I think if we talk about this in terms of a boxing match, Texas did a great job kind of dancing around the ring. And dancing sounds like it has a negative connotation to it. They understood, hey, the strength of that Michigan defense, those two big boys in the middle, Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, they're both Sunday players. We have to find a way to try and, circumnavigate this defense. We can't just try and go up the middle with them. That's a losing game. Why would we do that? So Lincoln Riley, what does he do? He's aggressive with the play calling. They come out swinging, throwing the football all over the place. They're creative. They got window dressing. They made those big boys in the middle run sideline to sideline. And eventually, just the law of nature, only so much stamina you can have at that size. It's not to knock them. It's just kind of a reality, and I think it's a great game plan by Sark. Play the game in space. I think Lincoln Riley, I would be wildly surprised if he doesn't try and do the exact same thing. Might look a little bit different. They might do a little bit more perimeter run game than we saw Texas do to start. I don't know if they'll come out swinging with Miller Moss the same way that Texas did with Quinn Ewers, but I do think it's still that same matchup. Lincoln Riley, what he does offensively, versus Wink Martindale and what he's doing schematically against USC. Because, if you think Michigan's going to be the same exact outfit they trotted out there against Texas, they also watched the tape from that game too, okay? As I mentioned, the bye week, though, for this is huge. Giving Miller Moss a full week to prep in this game plan, to get comfortable with what they're doing going into this game, I think that's absolutely massive. Because the reason why Texas was so successful to do this, in my mind, it was kind of two facets to it that USC has to execute. Quinn Ewers, in his experience, he was seeing the whole picture. Moment wasn't too big. Game wasn't too fast. Like he was steady. He was poised in that moment. Miller Moss, it's his first year being the guy at USC. He's waited his turn. I think he's well-versed in the system, but the same thing has to be true. He has to see the whole picture now. He can't get tunnel vision and fall victim to the deception that Wink Martindale is throwing out there for him. The other part of this, Texas and the weaponry they had on the perimeter, let's be real here. That was the difference for Texas. I mean, there was a number of differences for Texas, but that was a decisive advantage. They were able to go out and attack those matchups. They felt good about those matchups. I don't know that USC has the same perimeter skill that Texas does, which is not saying a lot, as Texas has some of the best perimeter skill in America, but we're going to see. Because outside of Will Johnson, I think you're also not 100% sure what Michigan has in that secondary, okay? So I keep going back to that Fresno State game. It was the first game of the year, but Fresno State seemed very comfortable swinging their sword and taking some shots, and they hit on a few and had a couple that were so close that probably could have changed at least the final score of that game being a little bit closer than it was. So USC, they'll go after him. If Miller Moss can walk the straight and narrow and see the whole picture, they'll be in good shape. If not, it's going to be Will Johnson going the other way, hail to the victors playing all day. It's going to be a very, very long afternoon if he's not able to see the whole picture from Wink Martindale. Now, for Michigan, again, if they're able to sort of outlast that first wave that Lincoln Riley brings at them with the aggression on the perimeter and can turn it back into a, hey, you got to play us in the phone booth, that's Michigan winning all day, every day. Like, as much as we want to say about USC improving in the interior of the offensive and defensive line, I still don't think they're necessarily at the level that Michigan's at right now. Now, for Michigan, this hasn't really been talked about a whole lot, and I'm a little bit curious as to why. I think Michigan has a massive edge in this game, a massive ace up their sleeve, and I'm curious to see how they play it. Because Alex Orji, you've seen him sparingly. You've seen him return kicks a year ago for Michigan. You see him have these specific packages where he's running the football. But, like, we have not seen an entire offensive scheme predicated on Alex Orji's skill set. And I said this yesterday. I'm going to say it again. You commit to Alex Orji and the entire experience that he is as a quarterback. If you trot out there and say, hey, just run the Davis Warren offense. No, this is who we are. This is who we are. You got to play quarterback within our system. Alex Orji isn't Davis Warren. They're different skill sets they bring to the table. And I feel like Sharon Moore is more than aware of that, but I'm just curious to see how that plays out in real time. Because you commit to Alex Orji the same way that you got to commit to playing charades at a game night with your friends. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. It's a little bit awkward. It's new, but like, hey, you got to commit to it. You got to be creative, and that's going to allow you to have success. Same thing with Alex Orji in this offense. If we just go out there and run a bunch of read option and it's no, pre-snap motion and it's a lot of the same looks that we've already seen from him from years past, like, it's going to be very, very predictable. But I would say this. I think that for USC defensively, as much as we've seen them improve, I don't know that we have 100% a gauge for who they are just yet. And the shutout against Utah State, awesome. Holding LSU to 20, awesome. However, if LSU executes better in the red zone now, if they get a little bit more than 6 points, those 3 drives inside the 15, like, that's a very, very different conversation we're having now about USC. Now, again, credit USC for bending, not breaking. All those things are true. But, like, let's align here now. USC still allowed 4.5 yards a carry against LSU. Okay, so I don't know that the USC defense is just like a finished product and fixed just yet. And I think they feel the same way in Los Angeles. But I wouldn't be wildly surprised now if we saw Michigan go out there with that sledgehammer, take a few swings at that Trojan wall, and we saw maybe a few cracks. Now, the big question for me is when we get to the fourth quarter, where are we at with the USC defense? Because I think that's probably who Michigan wants to be overall, especially with Alex Orji playing quarterback. Where is the game at in the fourth quarter is maybe a better question. Because if USC is able to score points how they want to score points, and it's a similar vibe to the Texas game where USC jumps out, let's say they're up 21 to, call it 10 at halftime, I don't know if you can really just do the whole sledgehammer approach anymore. Like at that point, you're kind of chasing points, and it's getting late early at that point in time. So if that's the case, that the game flows, advantage USC, probably doing a whole lot of fight on the way home. However, let's call it 17-14. I don't care who has the lead. Call it a 17-14 USC lead. Get to that third quarter, still pounding the rock. Get to that fourth quarter. I think at that point in time, we could see the Michigan just overall weight they put on people's backs start to wear on that USC defense. We start to see a little bit more of that smash mouth identity maybe it starts to break USC a little bit. I think that's a very possible scenario. Now, that's not me taking anything away from USC's defense, so we're all on the same page here. Very, very clear. Temperature was different on that side of the football when they played LSU, shutting out Utah State. Like they've made progress. How much progress? I think we find out a lot in this game. So if Michigan can find some juice offensively, and they're able to get Alex Orji rolling, and USC is out of sorts defensively, and the window dressing is there, Michigan's going to win this football game. However, I think Lincoln Riley getting a week to prepare with a how-to manual already on tape with Steve Sarkisian and company with Texas out there now, I have faith that USC is going to score points. I really do. I think if you're a Michigan fan, you hope you score points. That's a tricky place to be against the Lincoln Riley offense. Tricky place to be. Even trickier, I'm not 100% sold that this offense will be two-dimensional enough to be able to get into a track meet with USC. So for that reason, I'm taking USC. Final score, I like USC to score, call it 28, Michigan 21. I had 30 written down. 30 feels a little bit rich. I'll go USC 28, Michigan 21. So we like USC to win. We like USC to cover at the Big House. I know it's Big House. We're calling it Big House because that just kind of sounds cooler, to be real with y'all. But, man, I mean, at that point in time now, all the offseason talk around Lincoln Riley, what he wasn't at USC, he's going to the NFL, he's this, he's that. I don't know. Through 4 weeks, looks pretty good to me. Looks like just like Nebraska. It's funny to compare the two, but like USC fans have been saying for a while since Lincoln Riley got there, if we could just get a defense, if we could just be better aligned and be able to hold serve against the run, we might be able to do something here. I'm not crowning USC just yet, but vibes would be very, very high in Los Angeles. Now let's go to the college game day game. 7:30 Eastern, ABC, Norman, Oklahoma, Tennessee, going to Oklahoma. In Josh Heupel's return, Tennessee is a 6.5-point favorite. I'm calling this the Heupel Bowl until further notice. I cannot wait for this one. Cannot wait for this one. The atmosphere will be electric. The place will be on fire. Very, very curious to see what the reception is for Josh Heupel. If like they do a little, hey, thank you, Josh Heupel for everything when he gets back to Norman, or if it's just like, hey, you're with them, we're with us, let's get after it. Probably feel like it'll be a lot more you versus us. But here we go. Oklahoma. You only get to make a first impression once. Like when you meet your girlfriend's father for the first time, you don't get a do-over at that handshake. You can't grab early and grab his fingers and then it's just an awkward handshake, or maybe you go in a little bit too floppy fish and then you just look soft. Like you get one chance to make a first impression in the SEC. Get them at the crib. You got, I would say at this point in time, the best offense in college football coming to you. I mean, it's going to be very, very much so all the smoke you signed up for. And that's the thing for Oklahoma, too. Like, I want to make this very clear. Every single fan that I have interacted with from the Oklahoma fan base, there has not been one inkling of, well, I don't know if we're going to fit in the SEC. I don't know if we're up to par. Like, they're like, no, we want to be in this. Like, this is the creme de la creme of college football. We consider ourselves a creme de la creme program in college football. Like, bring it on. Let's ride. And so I love that mentality. I love that from Oklahoma. They're not running from any of the smoke. And they're going to have a chance now to get after it here in their first game in the SEC against Tennessee. Now, for Tennessee, there's a lot of emotions baked into this one. I mentioned Josh Heupel coming back to Norman. There's a ton of excitement, obviously, too, with the way your team has played to this point in the season. For Nico Iamaleava, his first true road game. How do they handle that? because mature teams are the teams that hoist hardware. Mature teams are also the teams that handle emotions properly and correctly and play their best football regardless of the circumstances. Home, away, neutral, they play their game. Is that Tennessee? We're going to learn a lot in this game. Now, Nico Iamaleava, I mentioned his first road game. Road games don't lie to us. Okay, they're going to tell us exactly who you are. I'm not telling you if he plays poorly that he's just somehow not who we thought he was, but I think we learned a lot about him in this game. Even if this game was at a neutral site, Oklahoma is still going to be the best defense they've seen, which isn't saying a whole lot. No shade to Chattanooga or to Kent State or to NC State for that matter, but like we're cranking up the speed here on this old pitch machine. Brent Venables, we compare game plans to packing a suitcase. You know, you depending on your opponent, you pack maybe a heavier bag. Brent Venables, I'm just telling you, if this was like a plane flight he was taking, his bag would not clear that 50-pound weight limit they put on you to pack your bag on the airplane. He's going to have something cooked up. Okay, they will bring a lot of pressure. It's a veteran defense. It's a salty outfit led by Danny Stutzman. It's a fast defense as well. I love the way that they're able to run sideline to sideline. Oklahoma, to this point in the year, has an 11% sack rate. Okay, now it's also true, though, when you bring pressure, there's a little bit of risking it for said biscuit. Okay, so if you don't get home now, you're playing a quarterback in Nico Iamaleava, who we have talked ad nauseum about his mobility. And that's really the thing that I want to hone in on here. If Nico Iamaleava is able to beat the blitz, there's going to be space. Whether it's for him to run the football or whether it's somebody else streaking open downfield, there's going to be space. So that really is a massive part of this whole thing. When Oklahoma dials it up, are they able to get home? And getting home does not mean that you have to get a strip sack and you're going the other way with it. Getting home just means, are you able to impact the throw? So within that now, Dylan Sampson, the running back for Tennessee, he's not the quarterback. He wasn't the number one recruit in the 2023 class, but that's, of course, I'm referring to Nico Iamaleava there, if you didn't catch that. He's hooping right now, though. Like he's averaging 8 yards a carry. I think he has to have a massive, at least start to this game to kind of settle that Brent Venables defense down a little bit. That's going to be huge. So watch how he starts the game early. If he's able to get some momentum and doesn't have to run for 8 yards a carry, but he's able to run for, call it 4 yards a carry, that'd be phenomenal. At that point now, if you're Tennessee, or if you're Oklahoma, have to maybe check yourself a little bit before you blitz there. Now, the matchups for Oklahoma's offense to me are just fascinating because Oklahoma's question mark on the offensive line is what I would consider to be the strength of Tennessee's defense on the defensive line. Oklahoma's allowed 9 sacks so far to this point in the year. Just full transparency, they haven't played all that vaunted of any defensive units between Houston and Tulane. Like they've allowed 3 sacks every single game. For Tennessee now, they consider themselves to be 12 deep on the defensive line. They got James Pierce, who's about to be, I would consider like a top 15, if not higher, draft pick this time next year. Now, so that's one part of this. But the other side of this is I think Oklahoma's strengths offensively match pretty well with Tennessee's weaknesses defensively, or at least question marks. Tennessee's secondary, hard to call it a question or a weakness just yet, but, I mean, it is a lot of new faces. They went to the portal pretty heavy, got some pieces there. How do they match up with Oklahoma's receiving corps? I think Deion Burks is quietly one of the better playmakers in all of college football. They expect to have Nick Anderson back in this game, another deep threat for Oklahoma. Jackson Arnold is going to have his work cut out for him a little bit in this game. I'm curious to see how Seth Luttrell calls this game as well. If it's me, and I'm not Seth Luttrell, I'm not calling the Oklahoma offense, but I would expect a good amount of pre-snap movement to try and at least throw the Tennessee defense off balance. I would also, if it's me, move the pocket a bit with Jackson Arnold. Because Jackson Arnold now, he's got some wiggle. Like he was a 5-star cat in that exact same class as Nico Iamaleava as well. Like he's got some juice to him. You get him out on the perimeter, he doesn't like it. He has a chance to get north and south and pick up a first down every single time. So what he does with his legs could ultimately be the neutralizing factor to that Tennessee defensive line. I don't think that's irresponsible to say. They have had a couple of games that have been slow to start for Oklahoma, but I would not be shocked in the slightest if they, similar to Brent Venables, pack a heavier bag with this game plan. They're going to get, you would hope they're able to get a little bit more healthy when it comes to this game. We're recording this, or shooting this rather, live on a Tuesday. Wednesday is when the SEC injury report comes out. But expect Oklahoma to be a little bit more well-resourced when it comes to guys they have healthy on that roster. So here's the deal now. Tennessee hasn't had to play a four-quarter game just yet. And we'll see how much that matters. But I'll just say this. As a player, it is very difficult to go from playing 2 quarters of a football game, being excited to throw your towel on and, have Gatorade with the boys on the sidelines while the rest of the guys get in, to then having to go, oh, no, you got to play all 4 quarters here. Like, this is obviously going to be a very different test than Chattanooga or Kent State. And NC State even ended up not being that great of a test for Tennessee. How do you adapt to that? Are you able to have sustained intensity? Because I promise you this, Oklahoma, that crowd, they will have sustained intensity for all 4 quarters. And Oklahoma, as much as you want to say, hey, they've started slow against Tulane, finished slow against Tulane, started slow against Houston, that's still an outfit there that in some ways, like, if that game is close in the third quarter, they're not going to be uncomfortable. They'll be where they've been for the better part of the last 2 weeks. So in that way, I think that actually favors Oklahoma when you look at that. Where is Tennessee when that first wave passes? And what I mean by wave is, like, I expect Oklahoma to come out guns blazing. Both from a crowd perspective, it'll be absolutely ridiculous at kickoff. I think the defense will dial it up because they, like Danny Stutzman said, they understand. Young quarterback, want to give him a complex picture to look at. Brett Venables is going to throw the kitchen sink at him. But when it all settles down, call it after the first quarter, where's the game at? Maybe that first wave lasts the whole first half. Maybe get to the third quarter. Where is the game at? Is Oklahoma able to get some leverage and it's like, hey, 17-3 Oklahoma? I'm just telling you, that is in the cards here. That is absolutely in the cards here. My gut, though, is that Tennessee is going to be in a manageable spot because of what that defense brings. The thing I can't get out of my mind is I've seen Oklahoma give up pressure with 4 guys, just different stunts given that offensive line issues. Say what you want about them being dinged up and this and that and the other, but like that was my concern heading into the season for Oklahoma. We had Oklahoma as 6-6 on our preseason takes, and my mentions are still blowing up. And I'm sure if Oklahoma wins this game afterwards, the mentions will be blowing up again. But I'm telling y'all this, man. I think Josh Heupel is too dialed in. I think Nico Iamaleava is too talented. This game, at the end of the day, college football, it's about matchups. And the matchups that Tennessee has on the defensive and offensive line, what they have on the perimeter, and their quarterback, I believe, eventually getting his footing in this raucous environment, like, I think Tennessee is going to be able to eventually pull away in this one. Ari Wasserman had something to say this morning on him and Andy Staples' show, Andy and Ari on 3, for those of y'all that aren't tuned in. Subscribe to the channel. Great stuff every single weekday morning. He said this is the week that Tennessee, people stop rolling their eyes at them in the rankings. Y'all, we should have been not rolling our eyes at Tennessee. They 70-piece. I don't care who you 70-piece somebody, you got something under the hood. So I think Tennessee wins. I think Tennessee covers. I don't think it's particularly all that close. If we're wrong, we'll go back to the crow. We'll eat it on Tuesday. But, y'all, I don't think we're wrong here. I think Tennessee makes a statement on the road. And Josh Heupel's return to Norman, I think Tennessee plays passionate, emotional football for their head coach. And I think Tennessee stakes their claim and plants their flag as being a team that is going to be very, very much so in the college football playoff race. I'll say this, too. If they beat Oklahoma in the fashion that I think they're going to beat Oklahoma, they will be in our college football playoff penthouse, if you will, for those of y'all that tune into the Wednesday show, our playoff tiers. So, again, Tennessee winning and covering in front of all of the nation on Saturday night. So, that's that. Also, I put this call out to action, JD throwing shade on the Sooners. I'm not throwing shade on the Sooners. Give me a break. Give me a break. Oklahoma is the big reason why we're even able to do this show in the first place. Probably another story for another time that I've told here before. No shade to Oklahoma. We want to see Oklahoma have great success this season, and just the way I feel about that game. Nothing personal with it. But what was I saying a second ago? I was saying playoff tiers. I like it. I like the name. It definitely suits the segment. We do playoff tiers every single Wednesday, which is playoff penthouse, who's on the bubble, bubble central, who's in the waiting line, who's waitlisted right now for the playoff, and then also check in on the G5 party. Would like to call that something else. So in the comment section, let me know something more clever than just playoff tiers. We'll leave that in y'all's hands. But one more game to break down here. Utah going to Stillwater, Oklahoma. This could end up being the most entertaining game of the entire afternoon on Saturday. 4 Eastern on Fox, Boone-Pickens Stadium. Utah's a 1.5-point favorite. Can we just stop for a second? This new Big 12 that we have is so sick. Like, this is the fact that we got Utah and Oklahoma State in a conference game. I'm not really pro realignment, but this is going to be a lot of fun. Utah, they're on a mission here, all right? They're on a mission. They got to go through Stillwater to get to where they want to go. And Cam Rising, he came back for games like this. He came back to get Utah to the college football playoff in Oklahoma State. I think most people agree, depending on how you feel about Kansas State, one of the big dogs in that conference. So we're going to learn a lot about Utah in this game. Utah also with Cam Rising's situation with his hand. Everything I've seen is indicating he's going to play in this game. We'll see what happens, but I'm going to go ahead and predict this game as if this is a situation where Cam Rising's going to play. Now for Oklahoma State, I think you got to feel, whether they say it or not, some sense of maybe disrespect feels like the wrong word, but maybe some sense of like ownership over this conference. Because Utah's getting a lot of headlines. People are talking about Kyle Whittingham and everything he did at the Pac-12. And, like, if you're Oklahoma State, you're like, wait a second. Like, we've been a top dog in this conference for a long time. You're just going to stroll in here? And all of a sudden, you're the talk of the town? Like, I think they probably feel some type of way about that, and I'm excited to see how they respond to that. The matchup, to me, is the unstoppable object versus the immovable force. Oklahoma State, you want to get Ollie Gordon going. Hasn't really happened just yet. You haven't seen him really break loose just yet against formidable opponents. But I think in this game now, we say this a lot, like your best players in your biggest spots have to be the guys that you go to. Ollie Gordon, very obvious. He's their best player. Okay, so the way that they try and force feed him the football, how committed they are to that is going to be something to watch because Utah now, Mike Gundy, really interesting press conference he had to start the week. Just was very open about how he felt about Utah in the sense of what they do schematically. Not in a condescending or derogatory way. He's like, they are who they are. Like, they're not going to change what they do. They've done it for a long time. They're going to put an extra guy in the box, stop the run. That's what they do. They're really good at it. Pretty straightforward there. From Mike Gundy to the audience and from this show, from Mike Gundy to y'all, they're going to do their best to put extra guys in the box to stop the run. Now, my feel on this, because Utah, they're also a team that wants to pound the rock. That's pretty much the identity of both these teams is they want to be physical, run the football kind of outfits. My guess is both of these operations are too salty and too well coached to let either side just totally bully them. Like if we're sitting here on Sunday morning talking about Oklahoma State going for 200 yards or Utah going for 200 yards on the ground, I would be wildly surprised. Both bring back over 70% production on defense from last year. Translation, there's continuity there. There's understanding of the scheme there. They play well together. Like that would be very, very surprising. Now, whenever there's kind of that stalemate when it comes to running the football, who does that go to then? The quarterbacks. And between these two, man, you got 14 years of college football under their belt. Both in their seventh year, God bless them. And some people say, well, hey, go get a job. I say, as long as they give you a helmet and pads, there's going to be a time where they take that away from you, where you're fresh out of eligibility, play as long as humanly possible. Because after that, if you're not playing in the NFL, you're in a cubicle, or you're doing sales calls. You're doing something that's not as enjoyable, I would imagine, to you as playing quarterback at a big-time college football program. So that's my soapbox on that. But with this game potentially going to the quarterbacks, whose playmakers are able to separate better for them. Brennan Presley, also been at Oklahoma State for a long time. He is the guy they'll go to most frequently with over 20 catches on the year. I think for Oklahoma State, Alan Bowman has to be able to create some breathing room for this offense. Because if you watch Oklahoma State now, they'll spray it all over the field when it comes to like how far they're willing to stretch it. He'll throw the field out. He'll push the ball vertical. And what that does, I know Utah, they want to commit to playing in the box and having that extra guy up there, but if you're doing that now, you understand you have one less individual to defend the pass. So Utah, they really have to be on their P's and Q's because the margin for error there is so small. So Alan Bowman has to be able to, one, hopefully be able to loosen up that box in that sense, but maybe even more specifically be able to capitalize on having less numbers on the back end for Utah. Like, there is some opportunity now for Oklahoma State to throw the football. Now for Cam Rising, I'm assuming that he's going to be a healthy version of himself in this game. I'm not breaking this down with a big question mark around, is he going to be like at 80%? Is he 90%? I'm expecting our normal Cam Rising in this game. But I'm curious to see how much Utah utilizes his legs versus how much Oklahoma State accounts for his legs, because we saw very early in the year, you're watching Arkansas and Oklahoma State, and pretty early on, you're like, wait a second. Quarterback for Arkansas, Taylor Green's having a field day running the football. And when he wasn't running the football, you could tell that Oklahoma State was at least thinking about him running the football, to where those, inside zones were hitting for a lot more than you would expect them to against the Oklahoma State defense because of the attention they had to pay to the quarterback. And so I don't think they'll probably give the same attention to a Cam Rising as you would a Taylor Green at Arkansas, because Taylor Green is just an absolute freak show with what he does athletically. No shade to Cam Rising, just kind of the fact of the matter. But with that being said now, if I'm Utah, I've seen that on tape, and I'm like, okay, maybe we can find a way to utilize some of the quarterback run game in this thing as well, whether it be designed or whether it be some ad-lib stuff from Cam Rising during the game. Something to keep an eye on now. I think that could end up being ultimately a major differentiating factor. So at the end of the day here, Oklahoma State, what they've put out there just makes me a little bit unsure. I mentioned Ollie Gordon not really breaking loose just yet. If that isn't happening in this game, I don't know if I like Oklahoma State to win consistently one-on-one, for Alan Bowman to consistently push the ball downfield to make Utah pay. I just think Utah ultimately is offensively going to be able to have their way too much with Oklahoma State. I think defensively they won't let up as many big plays as Oklahoma State's going to need in this game. I know it's in Stillwater. I know that crowd will be a major factor, at least early in the game, but I do think that Utah ultimately wins this football game. I think Utah's going to win this by right around 4 points. So we'll go ahead and take Utah with the final score of 28-24. So we like Utah to win. We like Utah to cover in Stillwater. So again, those are not all the predictions we're going to make this week. Again, went to the live chat, and we saw one of y'all say, hey, talk some Clemson. So you ask, we deliver. Got a Clemson-NC State prediction on the horizon for you. Also, want to do an Arkansas-Auburn prediction for you, because those are two programs that are in kind of fascinating spots right now. We'll break down both those games throughout the course of our next two live shows. So make sure you're subscribed. And let me know, too, in the comment section, in the live chat, on my social media pages, at JD Piquel, Instagram and Twitter, what you want to see from this show, okay? Follow me there, subscribe in here. The best way for us to hear from y'all and to collect data, however you pronounce it, and put the best show together for y'all. So we appreciate y'all for that. Speaking of shows now, told y'all about this last week, and it's now had right around a week out of the shoot. The Money Game is out on Prime Video. The Money Game is a compelling 6-part docuseries that chronicles the introduction of the groundbreaking decision from the NCAA, essentially to say, hey, NIL, it's fair game. Y'all do what you want to do. It's fair game. For the first time ever, we got student athletes able to earn endorsement compensation while also able to still play their college sport, which I think we can all agree. Say what you want about NIL, this is a good thing, and we've seen it be a good thing now. This docuseries, all access, it covers different athletes at LSU, from Angel Reese when she was at LSU, Livy Dunn, Jaden Daniels. Really insightful, and also it's just very cool. It's like the first time this has ever happened, and we're capturing it all in real time and making it a docuseries, and Prime Video is putting out there for us to consume. From executive producer and LSU alum, Shaquille O'Neal, The Money Game is out now exclusively on Prime Video. Go Tigers! Love to see that. Love to see that. I said that too. I mean, seeing Jaden Daniels in the Heisman year, it's good stuff. Very, very good stuff. All right, a lot of good banter in the live chat. A lot of good stuff going on there. We appreciate y'all for being a part of this, man. Y'all are what make this whole thing go. Y'all are what makes this program what it is. If you're watching right now, too, this is probably the end of the show where a lot of people have tuned out. I just want to highlight this. Look at Shut hooking us up with just a custom program helmet. You got Sailor Juice on there, which is, I guess, I love the Sailor logos. For those of y'all that have followed me on Twitter, like anytime a college will throw the Sailor hat on a mascot and they're the old school logos, I thought that was the coolest thing. They hooked us up, so big thank you to Shut for making that happen. This is going to live on the desk for every single live show, and we appreciate y'all for elevating the show to the level where Shut's like, hey, let's take care of y'all and put a helmet on the desk now. So thank you to Shut. Thank you to y'all. Next round hooks up with the visor, so we appreciate them for that. But we appreciate y'all. I see someone in the chat say, what's the best way to reach out? Following on the socials, at JD Pickell, Twitter, Instagram, probably the best way you'll get a response from me. But if you want to be able to give us like more in real-time data on the YouTube program, subscribing is the best way to do that. So, hey, we appreciate y'all being a part of this. For Nick Break on the ones and twos, we are live tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern. We got playoff tiers. We got clickbait takes to avoid. There'll be a lot of that, so keep your head on the swivel now. Moving into week 4 of the college football season. For myself, JD Pickell, we love y'all. We appreciate y'all, man. We're going to keep this party rolling, and we will see y'all next time.